Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 17 of Not the Worst at Knitting podcast. My name is Michelle, and I am the knitter and knitwear designer behind meeshyfrazz Knits. In today's episode, you might notice that it is quite dark. It's really starting to feel like fall here. The weather has gotten kind of cool. I think the high today is like 65 maybe, and it's cloudy and overcast. I'm hoping that the lighting in here is okay. It's a little bit dark, but I think we've got enough ambient light to where I think it's okay. And with that change in weather, I am just really ready for fall and ready for all transitional items. So you can see I am wearing another accessory today instead of a full garment. I still don't think it's quite sweater weather, at least not here, and not for me, but it's perfect for me to be breaking out some of these kind of like neck items. Like last week I wore a shawl. Today I'm wearing one of my favorite cowls. Side note really quickly, just in case you hear some noise. So Bagel has stolen a paper bag from a grocery shopping trip earlier today. I tried to put it away and he literally stole it. So it's over there. I figured it was best to just like stick it in the corner and let them kind of have at it. Hopefully it's not going to be too noisy, but that's probably what's going on back there. But anyway, back to the knitting. All right, sorry, I already had to stop for a brief interruption because the cats were making so much noise. I needed to move a toy that was creating even more chaos. Anyway, so let's chat about what I'm wearing. So this is a cowl pattern by Purl Soho. It's a free pattern on their website, and it is called the 2-color cotton cowl. They call for 2 skeins of sport weight yarn, and you essentially, instead of, it's a little bit different than your normal construction for a cowl. So a lot of cowls, like the cowl on my mannequin, the under the Ivy Cowl that I've featured in the last couple of episodes, it's more of a tube. This is actually, it's one long cowl, and you actually cast on the widest edge, which is the opening. So you cast on all of those stitches, and then you do a few rows in stockinette, and that gives you this nice rolled hem, this rolled edge, I guess. And then you go right into fisherman's rib. And if you haven't knit fisherman's rib before, then it's very similar to brioche. It creates almost the same look. Like, I don't actually know if I'd easily be able to tell the difference between brioche and fisherman's rib at all. But with fisherman's rib, you essentially rib every row, and on every row, all the knit columns, you actually knit the stitch below. So it creates this really beautiful doubled over effect where you get one dominant color on one side and the other color is dominant on the other side. And I love the way it looks. The only problem with knitting it is just it's very slow. So because you're knitting the stitch below for all knit columns every row, you're kind of like knitting 2 rows to equal 1 row in height. So it just takes a little bit longer, but I think it's really worth it. This is actually the second one of these cowls that I've knit. Now, granted, I knit both of these years and years ago. I want to say I knit this in maybe 2017, maybe something like that. I knit it originally in kind of like, it was waste yarn that I had, but it was like holiday colors, which I like, but obviously it's very specific to wearing like in December. Other than that, there wasn't really a lot of time for me to wear it, but I loved how squishy it was. So I decided to do another one in blue and white, which I really love how this turned out. So, and I actually, believe it or not, even though I knit this years ago, I still have little scraps of the yarn left that I used. It's just, there was just too little left for me to really do anything with. And it's also, I'll talk a little bit about. So like I said, this pattern, it calls for sport weight yarn. But I decided to actually use this fingering weight yarn that I had. I already had this yarn, and this is Country Yarns Artistry Fingering. And the blue is just a one-of-a-kind color. And then the white is called Matisse. And I picked these up, I think, I want to say one of the stores near me, it might have been like an end of the run clearance kind of sale. I think that's why I only got one of each, especially, I mean, this is a one-of-a-kind color, and it's so beautiful. It's got tons of different types of blues in it. There's lighter blues and then navies. And then this I thought was really nice contrast with it, mostly white with a little bit of blue and like some sort of greenish gray speckles in there too. So like I said, this is fingering weight yarn, and the only thing that it had listed was that it's 100% wool. So I didn't want to use this for socks because it didn't have any sort of nylon or any kind of strong other fiber in it. And so it sat for a while before I realized what I wanted to do. And then I actually thought that these together would just be really stunning with this. And so that's what I ended up using it for. And it's a probably like, I'd say this is firmly a fingering weight yarn. You know, it's not a light fingering, but it's also not a heavy fingering. So it's definitely more fingering than sport. But I feel like sport and fingering are often interchangeable. And for the sake of this, I think it worked out fine. This one came out a little bit smaller than my first one, which coincidentally I used DK weight for that one, so of course. But I actually still think that size-wise, it's perfect. I'll go ahead and take it off so you can see it in its full glory. But yeah, that's what it looks like, the total width. So this is actually, you're casting on and knitting across this way. So it was a lot of stitches to cast on, and it felt a little bit like a bit of an undertaking at first. But the nice thing is, even though it's fisherman's rib and, you know, each row feels like 2 rows equals 1 row, you don't actually have a ton of rows to knit. So it's over fairly quickly, and it's a very satisfying knit. And so this is the main color I used was the blue. But then you can also see this is the reverse side where the white is more dominant. I prefer it like this, where the blue is the main color and you just have a little bits of the white side that pop out. What I really enjoy about this is the fact that both colors have a little bit of the other color in them. So even though it's high contrast, it blends a little bit better than being quite so stark, I think, anyway. So go ahead and put this back on because I'm actually enjoying wearing it today with how chilly it is outside. Sorry, I'm just getting a text message about what I'm doing for dinner tonight. Okay, anyway, back to this. All right, so yeah, like once it cools off, I actually wear this cowl a lot in the fall. When I am just looking for something to warm my neck while I'm running out the door, this is always my go-to. Like it's just the perfect cowl. And I don't know, I'm definitely a big cowl person in the fall and winter. I love a cowl that I can wrap around my neck. I do find it quite satisfying that this is so long that you can wrap it around twice, because you can kind of just make it nice and bulky on your neck. And these yarns are, the yarn is quite nice. It's definitely like a hardy wool yarn. Like you can feel that it's a wool without it. It's not scratchy at all, but it's also not a superwash yarn. So it's not quite as soft or slippery, but I think that lends itself really well to these sort of chilly days. Like I can wear a t-shirt, have this and a light jacket on, and I'm good to go. I don't know, there's something about keeping my neck warm and like warm from the elements. It's really cozy. So yeah, this is my, I guess it's my, I'm not gonna say it's my finished object for today, but it's what I'm wearing for today. So it felt really appropriate to bring this out on this cloudy, chilly day. Moving on from there, we'll go ahead and chat about everything else that I am working on, and that will start with my Under the Ivy beanie pattern. So you can see I now have 2 finished beanies. The sport weight version which was finished last time, and then the DK weight version, which I was still working on when I filmed last week's episode. Now, there are some notes. Even though this was finished last time, I actually ripped back the crown and re-knit it after the fact, because after I finished this guy, so let me backtrack one step. So you can see how low contrast the crown is on this one, and that's just the nature of the Spincycle yarn. If you don't remember, the main color is Mandrake Moonspun in dark spruce, and the contrast color is Spincycle dyed in the wool in the color Rusted Rainbow. And as I got to the crown, it got quite dark. And so I couldn't really see what was going on with the motif. I thought, okay, it's not too bad. And actually, if you remember, I had 2 different motifs because I was playing with different ones, and then I didn't like having 2. So I narrowed it down to 1. And I thought it looked okay. And so I went ahead and cast on my Woolstok version. So this is Woolstok Light in the colors. The main color is the green, which is Wild Thyme. And the contrast color is this, which is called Driftwood. So I knit this guy up, and I'm holding the strands double because it's a light fingering yarn, and I wanted more of a hardy, thicker fabric for my winter beanie. And so it has a nice high contrast on this one. And once I got to the top and finished the crown, I was looking at it, and I didn't love the motif. Just like in the sketches I had done, I thought it was nice, but when in execution, I felt like it looked a little snowflakey, and just I don't think it worked with the rest of this motif. So I sat on it for a while, and I debated, and then I sketched out a few other ideas, but I really wanted to actually see it in execution before moving forward with testing. I don't like to send anything to testing that I haven't knit myself, because I want to make sure I like it before I send it to other people to knit, because I don't want to have to actually have those sort of revisions to a pattern. I want the pattern to basically be done so they can just knit through it and let me know if there's anything that's confusing or not enjoyable to knit. And so I ripped this guy out and redid the crown, and so you can see I feel like that works a lot better. It's more of a substantial floral motif instead of like this snowflakey vibe. And so I'm really happy with that. I should rip this back and redo it, but I will warn you, if you have never used Woolstok Light before, this is a good thing, and it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. This is a good thing, especially for knitting color work. It basically, like, the moment you knit it together, it's done. It's like, it's as good as felted. When I was first knitting the beanie pattern, originally I was doing just 1 strand instead of 2 strands held together. And after I knit up the ribbing, I wanted to rip back a couple of rows of the ribbing because I thought it was too long. And even just ripping back the ribbing it felt like it was next to impossible. So I just gave up and started a whole new thing of ribbing. Like, that's how difficult it was for me to rip out. And I'll note that I don't ever waste yarn. I don't ever throw yarn away. Like, I will use as much, like, if I do a long tail cast on and that tail is too long, I'm ripping out that long tail cast on and doing it again because I like to use every little bit of my yarn. I don't know. I don't want to waste anything. So the fact that I just threw away that entire thing of ribbing and started over, I think is telling for how well this yarn sticks together. I'm sorry if there's like weird noises. Of course, Bagel and Tuna have decided that now is the perfect time to wrestle. Okay, yikes. All right, so I really do want to rip this back and re-knit the crown. And maybe what I'll do is actually just cut. I'll just cut and start, and that'll be okay. So eventually I'll probably redo this just so it will match. But this is what the crown will actually look like in the pattern. In the chart, it's already done. I have just gotten this back from my tech editor and we are all clear. So this is now ready for testing. So this is my official announcement that there is a call for testers currently. Well, it'll be basically on Friday when this video goes live, that I will have a call for testers for these two hats. So if you are interested in testing for this beanie, just take a look down below. There will be a link in my show notes for the Google form to apply to test knit. And this is a great companion piece to my Under the Ivy Cowl. The cats are going nuts, of course. But yeah, so this is meant to be a companion piece to the Under the Ivy Cowl. And I did it in the reverse colors. So I just thought it would be nice. I didn't want them to be completely matchy-matchy, but I thought it was nice for it to be the same motif and the same colors, just reversed. And I think that plays really nicely together. So one more note about this pattern, as I mentioned, the first one I did was a sport weight with Spincycle yarn because I really wanted to see this in Spincycle yarn. And I really love the weight of it. It's a nice lightweight beanie that fits really like a skull cap kind of beanie. And the DK weight ends up being a little bit larger in, obviously it's a larger fabric. You're using larger needles, and so the circumference of this beanie ends up being a little bit bigger as well. And this was a tricky one. I chatted with my tech editor for a while about the best way to handle this pattern. Originally I had 2 sizes per gauge, but my tech editor was like, this larger size is just too big, I think. Like, you know, when you're knitting a beanie, you want there to be a good amount of negative ease because you want it to fit your head kind of tightly. And the larger sizes were ending up being more on like the 23 inches, which means that it needs to fit a 25-inch head, which I don't know if many people have a 25-inch head. So maybe they do. I don't know. I mean, and if you do and you want that size, please let me know, because my tech editor called it out as like, that's too large, we shouldn't do it. And I was like, you're probably right. I don't know if anybody's gonna need this, but depending on your gauge, it might be good to have that. That's what I think is interesting about this. But so long story short, I took that larger size off. And so the pattern does technically have 2 sizes, but it's based on the 2 different gauges. So each gauge has 1 size, which I hesitated with that for a little bit, but there was really no way around it because this is a 36 stitch repeat, this motif. So basically this entire section is 1 motif. And so it repeats 3 times. And if you go down a size or up a size, you have to remove 36 stitches or add 36 stitches, which makes it kind of a significant size increase or decrease. So it's an interesting way to play with gauge. Like if you know you want your hat a little bit bigger, you can use a thicker yarn with bigger needles to achieve that. And vice versa, if you want it smaller, you could go down to like a fingering weight yarn and smaller needles, or, you know, go larger with the yarn and do less motifs. So there's a lot of things you can do, but suffice it to say, there are 2 hat patterns, sport weight, DK weight, and they still come out pretty similar. Like you can see the motif is slightly larger on this, but I don't think it's so large that it creates a big difference in the way the pattern looks. So, and there you can also see I've made options in the chart for, since this is a larger beanie, I made an option where you don't need to repeat the last bit of ivy. You can actually eliminate that and go straight to the crown if you want more of a tight fitting to your head, or you can actually knit that other bit of ivy and that'll add almost another inch to the length of your beanie. So there are options that you can do with the sizing. So if you are interested in testing this, please again take a look at the application below, and I'll have that up for the weekend. And then I will probably send out the pattern to testers early next week. So that's super exciting. I'm glad to have this out. Now all I need to do is go take some nice photos of me wearing all of these, and we're almost in the home stretch with these patterns, which is really great. I should note the testing is well underway for the Under the Ivy Cowl, and people are really enjoying it, which it's always a relief when people actually enjoy knitting your pattern. Like, you know, it's one thing for the testers to go through and say, yeah, there's no problems, yeah, this is working out okay, but when you have testers actually say, I really like this, I'm enjoying it, this is fun to knit, that's kind of the main goal, right? Like, you really want it to be a fun knit. Like, there have been times where I've started to design something and I just stopped because I'm like, I'm not even enjoying knitting this up. And so, like, why make this a pattern? Because I don't know, there are times where you want to achieve something and you have to kind of do some difficult knitting to get there. And if it's worth it in the end, then that's great. But if the whole thing is kind of just a difficult, unenjoyable knit, I don't know about you, but my motivation is sometimes low for those things. So I really like enjoyable knits, and especially knits that feel like they work up fast because you're moving quickly. And I feel like this motif really lends itself well to that sort of thing. And it's been cool to see. I have at least one tester who has done, I think, mohair for the floral motif as like her contrast color. And then mohair or suri, I don't remember which. And then I have a few testers that are doing different colors for the floral motif versus the ivy, and one who's doing, I think, different colors for every single band. And they're all turning out really beautifully. Every color combo that they've picked out are just really, it's really fun to see, and it's helped me think of like even maybe other hat color combos I might want to do, because I can see myself knitting at least one more of these in my future, because this is a really fun, really quick knit. These are the kinds of beanies that I think are really great gift knits for the holidays, because I mean, you can knit this in like a day or two. It's just so quick, especially on the sport weight. This one moved really fast. So, Under the Ivy, beanie, cowl, yay! So that is still my only finished object for now. My next work in progress, which you are all very familiar with if you have watched me, but it's really coming along and I am thrilled. Let me see if I can find the right angle. Okay. My field day cardigan has a sleeve. All right, the sleeve's not done, but the body is. Okay, can I hold? Yeah, there we go. I'm gonna pull back a little bit so you can see, but the body is done. I did a tubular bind off on the hem. So it's a little bit curly right now because it's not blocked, but I just did the tubular bind off on this guy yesterday. And so we have got ourselves 4 buttonholes, and I also just picked up the sleeve, and this is the amount of stitches I've gotten done for the sleeve as of last night. So that's moving along pretty well. Let me make sure I'm not dropping stitches, which I am. Wait one while I pick up stitches. I am going to put my needle stoppers back on this because I don't want to drop stitches while I'm chatting about this. Okay, so the needle stoppers are back on, but as you can see, so in case you are new here or unfamiliar with the Field Day cardigan, this is a top-down cardigan sweater by Ozetta. And I am knitting this in a DK weight yarn. Sorry, I've got fuzzies in my mouth. I am knitting this on the base. It's Hazel Knits Lively DK on the in the colorway Shanty Pants. I love it. I'm super thrilled about it. This is my second time knitting it because the first time the size was wrong, but you guys know all about that. So I am knitting a size 1 to achieve the size 2 fit, which has worked out great. And yeah, so I'm on, I think, my 4th sleeve decrease, maybe my 5th. The decreases move quite quickly. Like, you knit a chunk straight, and then right around here you start your decreases, and then you're decreasing every handful of rows. So the decreases are going to start moving pretty quickly, and so I think this is just going to move quicker and quicker as I go. While I am chatting about this, I thought this would be a good time to maybe get your guys' opinion. Hopefully I can hold this in. I think that's probably fine. All right, so I've got 2 button options that I am debating. So I'm leaning toward doing these buttons. These are buttons I got at Flock, and hopefully you can kind of see they're all a little bit different, but they're still pretty similar. And this is kind of the light beigey set. And this I got from Hope Artisan Collective. And I think they go by Handspun Hope on Instagram. So again, I'm leaning toward that because I think that'll be really nice. But I also got a set of black buttons from them too. And these have a little bit, let's see if I can, yeah, it's the same sort of thing where each one is different, but they all have sort of a similar kind of pattern on them. Not pattern, but you know what I mean. And so this is the black. Try and put it on the button band. Can I do this? Oh, okay, there we go. All right, so the black, I kind of like the black, but I don't know if this feels like too much having that little bit of lighter color on there, because there's already, this is, you know, it's a decently, I wouldn't say that this is a busy yarn, but I mean, it's a bright green yarn. It's definitely tonal, so you've got different bits of green going throughout. Maybe it'll be helpful for me to just do it this way, actually. And I do wonder if maybe this feels like too much versus this. Yeah, looking at it, I think I'm gonna go with these. I think I like the lighter buttons, but I wanna know your opinion, so please let me know down in the comments what you think, or if you think a totally different button would work too. Originally, I actually wanted to go with something a little bit more like fun and quirky. I had in my mind these like, I don't know if they were acrylic or resin, but I had these ideas in my mind of these buttons that had, I don't want to say glitter because it wasn't glitter, but it had like different flecks of things in it. And there was one I had seen where it was white or sort of a transparent white, and it had little flecks of like white and green and black in it, and I thought that would have been really cool, but for the life of me, I don't remember. I think it was on a podcast I saw like a couple years ago, and I think it was somebody in the UK, and I don't even know where those buttons were from and if I could even possibly source them. But I had originally thought something like that, like a button that had some different flecks of things in it. But I don't know, that might be too much with everything going on with this. Like maybe that would work better with a much more neutral sweater, or a sweater where the tones weren't kind of all over the place. So yeah, what do we think? Can I hold them both up? Do I have the dexterity for that? Not really, no. We're gonna try though. We're gonna try it anyway. We're gonna fight against it. No, that's not working at all. Okay, well, yeah, I don't know. Let me know what you think. Black or beige? Cream? White? I don't know what we want to call them. Lighter or darker? I do think I'm probably gonna go with these. I think. But let me know if you disagree. So I'm really excited that this is actually like happening now. I think just getting the body done was a big win, just because, you know, it's a whole lot of knitting flat. And then, you know, once I did all of that ribbing, doing all of that ribbing felt like it was taking forever, and then also adding in the last buttonhole. So to have that done, have the tubular bind off done, and really just only have to do the sleeves now. And then I think outside of doing the sleeves, the only other bit I'll need to do is just sew that little back portion together, which will take me like 10 minutes. this is gonna be done really soon. So I am going away with my friend this weekend on a little like retreat getaway. And I'm thinking that if I don't have this done by the time I go to the retreat, I will definitely be able to finish this at the retreat, I think. I don't know how busy we're gonna be versus how much knitting time we're gonna have. So we'll see, but I suspect, I would like to say that by the end of this weekend, this will be done. We'll see next week. So if I come back next week and I am still working on this, then you'll know that I did not have enough time. But yeah, this is really in the home stretch now, and this is gonna feel like such a win when it's done. I tried it on and it seems to fit really well. Obviously, I can't really try it on again until at least the sleeve is done. I don't wanna stick my hand through this and cause all sorts of problems. But I'm feeling like this is really on track for the size I wanted to do, and yeah, it just feels good after knitting almost the whole thing and it not being the right size and feeling super deflated from that to now be almost done with it. Feels good. So that's my progress on Field Day Cardigan. I've got one other work in progress that I actually literally just started this morning. It's barely a work in progress, but I figured I would show it because I've got a few more things coming down the pipeline through the rest of the year, and I've had to be pretty quiet about them just because a lot of it was, you know, based on plans that were sort of being made, still trying to figure out. I was still charting some things and sketching some ideas, and these are both sort of holiday patterns that I will be doing. And so this one, this first one, well, I'm saying the first one, I don't have any others to show you right now. But the first holiday slash like winter pattern that I will be putting out is another beanie. This is going to be my second project as a blue sky maker, and this is using Woolstok North. Now, oh God, look at that. Look at how beautiful that is. As Blue Sky Maker, I get to see what yarns Blue Sky is putting out each year, and when they have new yarns, sometimes they'll send me a skein to let me try out and sample and see what I think of it. And so this past year, God, yeah, I mean, I guess it was almost a year ago now, one of their newer yarns was Woolstok North. So if you've worked with Blue Sky fibers before, you might be really familiar with Woolstok Worsted. That is kind of their, like, I feel like so many people I know have knit with Woolstok Worsted on one project or another. It's just kind of your everyday hardy wool worsted weight yarn, and it's great for sweaters. It's great for, it's a really nice yarn that works well on its own, works well with cables because it's got nice stitch definition. It's a nice round yarn. It also works great with color work because I don't know if I would even call it sticky, but it's sticky enough. Like, it's not superwash. It's a regular wool yarn. And so it holds on to color work nicely and blooms beautifully. But it's also not so scratchy that you wouldn't want to wear it as like next to skin on like a cabled sweater or something like that. So it's just kind of an all-around great workhorse yarn. So most people have heard of Woolstok Worsted. And then last year they put out Woolstok Light, which cowl, and Woolstok North. And these were both my choices to work with these yarns. I loved the idea of having more options in kind of the Woolstok range. And so I really wanted to work with this Woolstok North when I saw it, and it is a super bulky, so let me see, I've got the tag here. So it is super bulky, and let me see, what's the info on it? So it's 150 grams per skein, which is 107 yards. So it's a good amount that you get in a skein. And this color, which I picked out, is called Cranberry Compote. And like when I saw the color, I was like, that's gonna be a holiday beanie. That just has to be a holiday beanie. Like I saw it, so this was actually the skein that they sent me. And I think this is in the colorway Thermal Spring, which I love, but you know, we've talked about this. The icy blue is, I'm not sure if it's entirely my color, but it's been a good one to like swatch with. Maybe, I think I might still do another one in this, we'll see. Maybe it'll be a gift one. I sketched out all the ideas and then I got the yarn, and then this year just like completely got away from me. And then by the time I was starting to think about working on this beanie again, it was summer, and I didn't want to work on yarn this thick in the summer. I just didn't want to do it. So even though I have had this pattern kind of ready to go, I am really just now getting to knitting it, which is fine because now I am fully in my like fall and winter knits mojo, and I'm really excited to be working with it. So there's going to be, I've actually already decided there's going to be a slight modification I'm going to make, so I'm technically actually going to rip this out and redo it, but this will still count as one of my works in progress. And I don't have a name for it yet, but this will be my holiday / winter beanie for the end of the year. And so this, I don't expect will take me too much longer as I work through some of the revisions and then knit this up. Like I've said, knitting a beanie in general is fast. And if you haven't worked with a super bulky yarn on a beanie, let me recommend that you do, because sometimes you just want a big chunky hat, and sometimes you just want a big chunky knit that takes you 4 hours, you know, like it takes no time. It is funny though. So after swatching with this and figuring out kind of the gauge I wanted to do, I think I've landed on doing a US 13 for the bottom ribbing, which is 9 millimeters, and then a US 15 for the body, which is 10 millimeters. These are chunky needles. These are really chunky needles. These are the largest needles in my interchangeable set. And I didn't quite realize, I guess it's been such a long time since I have used these size of needles, mainly the 15s. I didn't really have this issue until I got off of the ribbing, but I actually didn't have stitch markers that would fit over these needles. So I had to go digging way back into my like ChowGoo needle archives, because you know how they'll send you the bags of the glass stitch markers. And so that's what I was able to use for my beginning of round. And then I happen to have, because I like to have different ones for the pattern repeats than I do for my beginning of round, I happen to have these, which are also from ChowGoo, and it was from the minis, so the mini interchangeable needles in the bigger sizes. So thankfully I had these deep in the back of my closet, like stitch markers that were so big I never thought I'd use, because I don't know about you guys, but I find that I almost always knit between US 5 to US 7 range of needle sizes. And so I like the really small stitch markers, but yeah, so if you've got those really chunky stitch markers and you're thinking about throwing them out because you might not use them, definitely hold on to them and put them somewhere in storage, because you never know when you might want to do a super chunky knit like this guy. I don't know, just based on my plans for the weekend, I don't know if this will be done by my next video, but this will be done soon, and then I can talk more about that and obviously get this guy into testing as well. I think this will be a pretty quick test, just because I think it'll be a pretty quick knit. Obviously, I'm gonna give people enough time to do it and not assume that that's the only thing they're working on, but it shouldn't take very long. So I suspect I will probably be making a couple of these. And yeah, so that is my next work in progress. My next future work in progress is I am doing another collaboration with Hazel Knits, and we are doing a Christmas sock and cowl pattern together. So I just finished the chart on it, And so I'm going to be working on that sock. That's also something that I'm kind of hoping I can maybe work on this weekend. I printed out my chart and I'm gonna try it out and make sure I like the way it looks. So I love to draw out the charts. I just use Adobe Illustrator when I'm like sketching out chart ideas. Like I've got a grid notebook too that I'll use sometimes, but I find that I'm making changes so quickly. And as a graphic designer, I just kind of work quicker on my computer. And so I've got a grid set up that I will just kind of sketch on with the different colors. And so I played around with several different Christmas motifs. And it's always funny when I go into some of these designs because I have one thing in my mind for what I think it's gonna be. And then by the time I do my many iterations and sketches, it ends up becoming something very different from what I expected, but I end up loving it so much more than my initial idea. But then there's always this kind of tug of war because I'll still have my sketch from like my original idea. And even though I know it's not as good as the one I know I'm gonna pick, I still like need to keep them and compare and maybe like try both of them out before I officially am just like, yeah, no, just go with the one that, you know, that's evolved. But I think that's going to be a really fun one. So I picked out the colors from Wendy. At the time, we weren't really sure what it was going to be, and I was just kind of grabbing all of these mini skeins that I thought were fun and beautiful. And so I've narrowed it down like to what I think it's going to be, but I need to knit it up now and make sure that I like how those colors look knit up. And so we will be doing, it will be a fingering weight like sock pattern. But I also know that not everybody wants to knit a colorwork sock. So I'm also going to be doing a cowl pattern that will be in a DK weight yarn. So the cowl will move very quickly and it'll probably be similar to this where it'll be like a Mobius infinity cowl. So it won't be a huge knit and it'll just be a little tube that you will probably do a Mobius twist on. But that will be something that I'll be working on. And there are a couple of patterns that I do have coming up that I will be working through for next year that will need to be secret until they come out. So I don't think that'll be the case for this Christmas pattern or this, obviously this holiday beanie. Like I like to be able to share what I'm working on. I don't know, that's why I'm doing this podcast, because I'll work on something and then I want to share it. I don't know, that's part of the fun of this hobby. And so I do think I'll be sharing about those two projects, especially since I can't share about some of the bigger patterns that will be coming up next year. But there are some exciting things coming up next year, which will be really fun. So there's something I'm starting to plan now and swatch for another summer top for later next year. But that's really all I can say about that. So I guess in terms of all the things I'm knitting on, that kind of covers that. I did have one acquisition from actually a couple of weeks back that I completely forgot to share because it was like, it happened right after Flock. And I think because I had all of the Flock acquisitions, I just completely forgot to talk about it. I am sorry for the crinkling. There is going to be some crinkling because it's in a bag and I don't want to take it out of the bag. Ugh, okay, but hopefully that is showing up okay without too much of a glare. There we go. I got my Nutcracker Collection sock set from Tiny Human Knits. And so I chose to do the 100-gram sock with the, what is it? Is it a 10-gram mini? It's a 20-gram mini. So 100-gram sock skein, 20-gram contrast mini. And this is a self-striping sock yarn. I decided I didn't want to do another Advent sock self-striping yarn because I wanted to see what it was going to look like before I bought it, because I just don't do good with mystery buys. And I had seen on the Tiny Human Knits podcast, she had done a big update where she was showing all of the different options she was going to have for this colorway. and I absolutely fell in love. Like, I just think the colors are beautiful. I want to say that she said this was based off of like a Gap sweater from like a Gap holiday sweater from back in the day, which I also think is really funny because if you've watched my previous, I think in my previous episode, I mentioned that one of the knitting podcasts I watch is Jen Geigley. She actually just put out a pattern, and I think it's called the 1999, and that is based off of a Gap sweater from 1999. And so, I don't know, I feel like there's this like Gap striped sweater revival happening right now, and maybe that's why I'm so drawn to this, I'm not sure, but I just thought these colors were gorgeous. I think this will be a great like holiday knit for me to work on in December. I really enjoyed doing a stripe a day on socks last December. I would wake up in the morning, I would make myself some coffee, I would go sit in my little knitting chair and knit one stripe on both socks while I watched like Vlogmas episodes. And it was so nice just having that little routine for myself every morning, have like candles lit and my fun little holiday lights. It was just really, really fun. And so I'm actually really looking forward to doing that. And so if that's something you want to do, but you feel like you've already missed out on the holiday advent thing, just look for a fun self-striping yarn that you like. I mean, I don't think it necessarily even has to be like holiday colors. And another thing you could also do is just work with minis that you already have and make your own self-striping sock. I mean, yes, you'll have some extra ends to weave in, but you know, that's okay. You could also weave them in at the end of each, like you could weave in the previous day's color at the end of your knitting session each morning or something like that. I don't know. You do you. You don't have to do what I do. It's fine. But anyway, so that is my acquisition that I got a couple of weeks ago. And that's just going to sit in the packaging in my stash for another couple of months. It's so weird because I know it's like just starting to be September, but because I'm already thinking about the holiday patterns that I've got coming out, like in my mind, I'm like, it's Christmas. So don't listen to me. Like, I know it's still early for pumpkins to be out. So yes, let's enjoy early fall. Let's take our time. There is no rush. But yeah, that kind of does it for all my yarny fun, all of my knitting fun. The only other update I have is just to, I guess, update you guys on, you know, what books I'm reading. So last week I was talking about how I had finished A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Is it Maas or Moss? I keep hearing different versions of it. I'm going to assume it's Maas unless somebody tells me otherwise. So I finished book 1 of that series, and people had warned me that that was the worst book of the series, and I said in last week's episode that it wasn't too bad, but it definitely had some problematic themes, and I wasn't really sure how I felt about it. Well, now I am about halfway through the second book in the series, which is A Court of Mist and Fury, I believe, and now I'm feeling better. I feel like the problematic themes in book 1 are supposed to be problematic. Like, when I was reading it, I was like, I don't know, this love story is making me kind of cringy. Like, I feel like there's some red flags here. This doesn't feel great. And then there was like a big reveal at the end of the reason she was actually brought to this other land, and it was even more problematic, and she like doubled down on how much she loved him, even though I was like, ooh, girl, I don't know. But I think now that we're in book 2, we've got a whole new cast of characters, and she's in another area, and she's kind of realizing that it was problematic. And so I'm like, okay, I think we're all supposed to agree that that was problematic. And so now I'm feeling better about the series as a whole, and I'm enjoying book 2 a lot. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Like I said, I'm about halfway through A Court of Mist and Fury. And I mean, I know people absolutely love these books, so I expect that I will probably continue to enjoy them as they go. But I'm enjoying them, and hoping that I continue to enjoy it as much as I am now. That kind of does it for me today. That covers my knitting, that covers my reading. And yeah, I should probably go before we lose all of our light, even though it's not even that late today. So thank you so much for watching if you stuck around to the end. And if you would like to get in touch with me, you can find me at meeshyfrazz on Instagram and Ravelry. I am also meeshyfrazz@gmail.com, and you can find me at my blog, which is meeshyfrazzknits.com. Definitely sign up for my newsletter if you want to be on top of test calls, and if you are interested in test knitting for me, especially for this beanie, take a look at the link below and go ahead and apply. And just keep in mind that I have a very set number of testers that I allow depending on the type of project. And so especially for accessories, that tends to be a little bit on the lower end. So don't feel bad if you don't get in. It has nothing to do with you as a person or even, you know, your knitting style. Sometimes it's just, I just ran out of room and, you know, these people applied first. So I try really hard to give everybody a chance. And so definitely, like, if you've applied before and you didn't get in, don't let that stop you from applying again. And yeah, if you have applied or tested with me previously, then you know the drill with that. And actually this current test knit that this group that I'm working with, they mentioned wanting to do a Zoom call. So I'm trying really hard. It's proving difficult because, you know, we're all over the place in different time zones, but I do think that's a nice thing that I might try to do with my test knits in the future, is have at least one Zoom chat where at least most of us can try to get together and, you know, share what we're working on and have more of a meet and greet. I typically have a chat on Instagram, and it always goes really well. Like, everybody's so friendly and they share all of their progress, and typically everybody gets along really great in there. So just having that Zoom chat might be one more avenue that we can use to get to know each other. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next week. All right, bye.